Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most pervasive habits that silently erodes respect is the constant need for validation. Now, let's be clear. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to be acknowledged or appreciated. That's human. We're social beings. We've evolved to live in tribes, to cooperate, to depend on the approval of others for survival. But there's a crucial difference between being socially aware and being psychologically dependent. When your sense of self is built on the shifting sands of other people's opinions, you're no longer in control of your identity. You become a mirror, not a person. And people don't respect mirrors, they use them. At its core, the chronic need for validation reveals a deeper issue: insecurity. If your decisions, your values, your ambitions are always contingent on external applause, then they're not really yours. You're renting your identity from the crowd, and at any moment the crowd can change its mind. That's a dangerous place to live. It makes you reactive, not proactive. You adapt yourself to fit in rather than standing out. You become agreeable to avoid confrontation, even when confrontation is necessary. You water down your message, soften your voice, mute your potential, just to be liked. And here's the irony: the more you try to please everyone, the less respect you actually command. People are quick to recognize when someone is desperate for approval. It's in the body language, in the tone of voice, in the way someone hesitates before expressing an opinion, checking first to see what the room thinks. That hesitation signals uncertainty, and uncertainty doesn't breed respect, it breeds doubt. True respect, the kind that lasts, isn't born from charm or popularity, it's born from principle. It's earned when you speak with conviction, not just charisma, when you take a stance that might not be popular, but it's what you believe. People might not agree with you, but they'll listen, they'll remember. Why? Because so few people are willing to do it. In a world that rewards surface-level performance, depth is magnetic. Now let's look at this psychologically. From a developmental perspective, individuals who constantly seek validation often missed crucial affirmations early in life. Perhaps they were only rewarded when they performed well, or maybe they were punished for expressing opinions that deviated from the norm. Over time, they learned a dangerous lesson. My value is conditional, and once that belief takes root, it can drive a lifetime of approval-chasing behaviors, always trying to earn the right to exist in someone else's eyes. Philosophically, this ties into something much deeper, the question of identity and meaning. If you don't define yourself from within, you will be defined by whatever culture, trend, or ideology happens to dominate the moment. That's not a life of freedom, it's a life of quiet slavery. Viktor Frankl once said that when a person can no longer find a sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And often external validation is one of those distractions. The dopamine hit of a like, a compliment, or a nod of approval becomes a substitute for real inner peace. But it never lasts. It's always a loan, never an investment. The antidote? You need to build your values like a fortress. That means spending time understanding what you truly believe. Not what you were told to believe, not what's trending on social media, but what resonates with the deepest part of who you are. It means asking uncomfortable questions. What do I stand for? What am I willing to be criticized for? What line will I not cross, even if it costs me admiration? That kind of introspection is hard, it demands honesty and humility, but it also produces clarity. And once you have clarity, you no longer need to beg for respect, because you've already earned it from yourself. And that's the key. Self-respect is the foundation for all other forms of respect. If you don't respect yourself, no one else will. Not for long. You can manipulate people into liking you, you can flatter them, agree with them, entertain them, but deep down, people are drawn to authenticity. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. And when someone walks into a room fully at ease with who they are, not arrogant, but grounded, it creates a ripple effect. You don't have to shout, you don't have to convince anyone, your presence does the talking. So the next time you catch yourself altering your words to get a pat on the back or holding back an opinion because you're afraid someone might disapprove, pause. Ask yourself, am I living from a place of truth or a place of fear? Because one will make you powerful and the other will make you invisible. Here's the truth most people avoid. Not everyone will like you. And that's a blessing, because when you stop trying to be everything to everyone, you finally become something real to someone, including yourself. Let that be the standard. Seek truth, not approval, and respect will follow. There's a curious paradox when it comes to communication and respect. The people who command the most respect in a room are often the ones who speak the least, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know when not to say it. They understand that wisdom isn't demonstrated by how loudly or how often you speak. It's revealed in the discipline to listen, to observe, to understand before responding. And that habit, listening before speaking, is slowly becoming a lost art. We live in an age where everyone has a platform, a microphone, a feed. The culture rewards quick takes, strong opinions, and fast responses. The problem with that is simple. If everyone is broadcasting, who's receiving? Who's absorbing? Who's integrating the complexity of what's actually being said? Because true understanding, the kind that fosters respect, requires more than just waiting for your turn to speak. It demands presence, patience, a willingness to suspend your own ego long enough to truly engage with another person's perspective. When someone constantly talks over others, interrupts, or redirects conversations back to themselves, it sends an unmistakable signal. What I have to say is more important than what you have to say. Now think about what that implies. It's not just arrogant, it's dismissive. It reduces the other person from a thinking, feeling human being to a prop in your monologue, and people pick up on that, even subconsciously. They may laugh at your jokes or nod while you talk, but deep down the respect erodes. You become entertaining, maybe even impressive, but not respected. Listening, on the other hand, is a show of strength. It's a restraint of the ego. It's a signal that says, I don't need to dominate this interaction to validate myself. I'm confident enough to be curious. That kind of presence is powerful. It builds rapport, trust, and yes, respect, because it demonstrates maturity. It shows that you're not just playing the game of conversation to win, you're engaging, to connect, to learn, to grow. From a psychological standpoint, this need to speak excessively often comes from insecurity masked as confidence. People who are unsure of their value tend to compensate by proving themselves verbally. They try to dominate the space, as if volume and quantity of speech will somehow elevate their worth in the eyes of others. But it doesn't work. It backfires, because people don't remember what you say nearly as much as they remember how you made them feel, and being talked at rather than talked with rarely feels good. There's also a deeper philosophical issue here. The ancient Greeks understood the value of dialogue, true dialogue. Socrates, for instance, didn't give long speeches. He asked questions, he probed, he listened. He believed that wisdom wasn't something you deposited into another person like a lecture. It was something you discovered together through conversation. That requires humility, a recognition that no matter how much you know, there's always something more to learn, especially from the person in front of you, if you're willing to listen. And make no mistake, listening isn't passive. It's not about staying silent until it's your turn to speak again. It's active, it's engaged, it's asking better questions, not just offering better answers. It's tuning in not just to words, but to tone, to expression, to what's not being said. And when you do that, you start to see people in a much clearer light. You begin to understand their motivations, their fears, their values. That understanding becomes a kind of superpower, because when people feel understood, they open up. They trust you, and from trust comes respect. But this is hard because it requires putting your ego on the back burner. It demands that you stop seeing every interaction as an opportunity to impress and start seeing it as an opportunity to connect. That's a fundamental shift in how we relate to others. It's not about shrinking or silencing yourself. It's about being strategic with your voice, about knowing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. There's an old saying, a wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he has to say something. That's timeless wisdom. If you want to be respected, stop filling silence for the sake of it. Don't rush to offer your opinion before you've absorbed the situation. Don't interrupt to win a point when you haven't heard the full story. And don't confuse dominance with leadership. Leadership listens first. So in your next conversation, pause. Let the silence stretch a bit longer than feels comfortable. Ask a question and actually wait for the full answer. Don't plan your reply while the other person is still speaking. Just be there. Listen like it matters, because it does. And in doing so, you send a subtle but unmistakable message. I see you. I value what you have to say. I don't need to be the center of attention to know who I am. That message, unspoken but deeply felt, is what earns real respect. In a world obsessed with being heard, become the one who listens, and you'll stand out without ever raising your voice. One of the surest ways to lose respect, quickly and irreversibly, is to make a habit of avoiding responsibility. And let's not confuse this with occasional human error. We all falter, we all rationalize at times, but there's a deeper pattern that develops in some people, a chronic reflex to deflect blame, to justify shortcomings, to point outward instead of inward whenever things go wrong. That habit doesn't just damage your credibility, it corrodes your character. Now, the psychology behind excuse making is worth examining. When something goes wrong, especially if it's tied to our own actions,